Hello class, I'm doing a handwriting video to tell you that we're getting ready to start something brand new. Ever since the beginning of the year, I've been teaching you how to write the cursive letter alphabet correctly. We talked about how letters live in houses, just like people, and we talked about how, I'll show you over here, how there is an upstairs, a downstairs, and a basement. The ceiling, the blue dotted line, and the pink carpet. We've gone over all of our little letters, and we've gone over all of our capital letters. Now, we are heading into the last month and a half of school, and instead of doing handwriting papers to practice with our letters and sentences, we're going to start a unit called Creative Writing. I'm going to teach you how to write stories. Do you like stories? I like stories. Let me read you a poem. This is a recipe for a story. Like Mom follows a recipe to make a meal. This is a recipe to know how to make a story. I love to hear a story told or read one from my shelf. What fun it is to write a story all by myself. Words, phrases, sentences, I take them one by one and mix them all until I have a story full of fun. We're going to start talking today about how you can learn to write your own stories, like the ones that we find in our reading books, or the ones that you find on your bookshelves or in the library. You already know part of what it takes to write a story. You know how to write your letters. You know every single cursive letter and every single printed letter in the alphabet. And when we take letters and make them into words, then when we take those words and make them into sentences, then when we put more than one sentence together, boom, you have a story. A story uses words, phrases, and sentences to make something incredible, to make something imaginative, or to tell something true. Let's say that you are the author of a story. How would you begin? Well, an author starts with an idea. They have to decide what they're going to write about. Once they decide what they're going to write about, they take all their thoughts and they have to make them into a thought that makes sense. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. Let me show you some examples of sentences. My first example is right underneath my chart here. Pull this down. My first example is this. Chase played in the water. Now take a look at this group of words. Chase played in the water. Do we know who did something? Yes, Chase. Do we know what he did? Yes, he played in the water. So, since we know who did the action and what action was done, that is a complete thought. So, a sentence needs to have a complete thought. If it's not a complete thought, we can't call it a sentence. We have to call it a phrase. Now, maybe a phrase can help your imagination start going, but a story is made up of sentences. Now, not only does a sentence have to be a complete thought, it has to be two other things. But guess what? You already know these two other things. In order for a sentence to be complete, you tell me what it needs. Yes, a head and a feet. Here's my sentence man here to help us out today. For a sentence to be complete, it needs to have a head, which is what we call the capital, and it needs to have feet, which is the punctuation marks. It could be just a regular statement with a period. It could be a question, or it could be an exclamation, exciting sentences. Capital letter, punctuation, complete thought. Let's see what his complete thought is. The dog ran. Do we know who did something? Yes, the dog. Do we know what he did? Yes, he ran. So it has a capital letter, it has a period, and it's a complete thought. That is a sentence. For a sentence to be complete, it needs to have a head and feet. Head is the capital, nice and tall. Feet are the punctuation marks, so it doesn't fall. Head, feet. Together, head and feet to be complete. Now, let's look at some examples that are not sentences. Let's look at this top one up here. Played long for a time. Oh boy. That's a lot of words, and I don't think it makes a complete thought. Played long for a time. Well, it's a good start to a sentence, but it's all jumbled up. Let's see if we could take those words and make a complete thought. Let's see. Is there anything in this group of words that could tell us who did something? He. Let's start with that word. He. Now, what did he do? He played. Okay. He played long for a. He played for a time long. For a long time. He played for a long time. Got it. Now that is our complete thought. The words were there, but they were just not in the right order. So once we got them in the right order, boom, it made sense. But we're not done. For a sentence to be complete, it needs to have a head and feet. So our first word was he. So I'm going to write he with a capital H because it's the beginning of my sentence. Finger space, little tiny pinky finger space. He played. Pull, a is my root word. D is my suffix. Another part of story writing is spelling and phonics. So you need to remember, look, E in me. Look, pull in play. A in pray. Play is a root word. D is a suffix. Those are all your phonics rules. Do you see how everything you learned in first grade is coming together to work together? So that's what's so awesome about the end of first grade is you get to see how all your hard work is coming together so you can be an author. Okay, back to our sentence. He played, finger space, pinky finger space, for, F-O-R, space, A, space, long, ol, ongen, long, time. Okay, so I have my capital letter. Now I need my period, and there's my sentence. Now, a sentence is usually a story is usually more than one sentence. It's at least 2 or 3. I would say 3 or 4 would probably make an awesome story, but it needs to at least be 2 or 3. Okay, let's look at another possible sentence. Okay. Wet he got very. Wet he got very. If somebody walked up to you and said, wet he got very, are you going to know what he talked about? Well, let's see if we can rework this thought into a sentence. Who are we talking about? He. So that'll be our first word. He. He what? He wet? He got or he very? Ooh, he got. He got what? He got wet. He got wet very. Oh, you know what? I changed my mind. Let's do it. He got very wet. How about that? He got very wet. That makes sense. For a sentence to be complete, it needs to have a head and feet. So let's come back over here. Now, I don't have any more room on this line. Even though I'm starting a new sentence, if I still had room, I could keep it on that same line, but I do not have room, so I'm going to come down to my next line. Again, my first word is he, so it's going to be a capital H, pinky finger space, got, space, very, space, wet. There's my sentence with my period. Now let's read my story. This one's a very short story. My first sentence is up at the very top. Chase played in the water. He played for a long time. He got very wet. Every one of my sentences starts with a capital letter. Every one of my sentences ends with a punctuation mark. Because I have 3 sentences all about the same topic, I can call this a story. It's a very short story, but it's all about a boy at the water. Maybe he's at the beach, or maybe he's at a pool. We don't know, but we know he's at the water, he got very wet, and that is a story. So, how are we going to practice this on our own today? Well, I sent home with you, when your parents picked up your packets of papers, I sent home some writing tablet paper. I'll show you mine. Okay, so you should have a whole bunch of plain paper at home that looks like this. Now, I want us to be wise with this paper. We're not going to be writing very much on it today, and so another day maybe you can reuse the same piece of paper. I just want to know that you are practicing your thinking of putting your thoughts together to write sentences. I want you to practice, still always practice, writing letters correctly. Even though our handwriting papers will look different, we're going to be writing stories instead of just practicing letters. It's still important that every time you come to a letter, you ask yourself, where does this letter live in my letter house? Now, sometimes you'll be writing a specific story with a specific topic, and that will need a specific piece of paper or one that I will direct you to in your book. But for today, we're just going to practice a little bit of what I taught. So I would like you to find a piece of this tablet paper right up at the top where there's no house number. That's where your name goes. Please write your name in cursive. Then you're going to start in house number 1, and you are going to write the 3-sentence story that we came up with together. I'm going to show you the sentence again, and then if you need to pause it so that you can write it, then that is fine. You're going to start at the beginning, right next to house number 1, and as much space as you can, you fill up this row. And when you run out of room, you come down to house number 2, and you fill up this row. More than one sentence can be on a line. Remember, you only use a pinky space. Let's go over the sentence one more time. Chase played, sorry, there's a glare. Let me stand this way. Chase played in the water. He played for a long time. He got very wet.